Welcome, everyone, to our second session on analytics for managers. The objective of this second session is to walk you through a specific example of how you start an analytics project, from defining the business problem all the way to defining the key measures of success, all the way to thinking about the stakeholders involved in that project. So, in a hope that from that short example that we walk through, that you could take this as a blueprint, if you will, and apply it to your own context. So the key steps that we talked about in class are defining the business problem, first step, then thinking about the key types of business analytics that you want to apply, the expected outcomes of that project, how you measure success, and your access to data, or broadly the data acquisition process. So suppose you have the following case. So suppose you want to increase the number of EMBAX participants by better targeting potential leads in the executive education market. You also want to increase diversity. So suppose that this is our current business problem, that we want to get more people and have a more diverse group of students. So there are different ways to think about the types of analytics that you probably want to apply, but you could think along two lines. So the first is probably to just understand the past. So what are the current student cohorts? So what are the specific profiles that are currently present in the program? And from that understanding of the current profile, you might want to define, where do we want to go with the program? You want to define the future student profiles, and then use the initial results from the descriptive analytics to then think about a follow-up predictive analytics project. But it's first understanding the past, then using that knowledge to define the predictive analytics project. So the expected outcomes probably vary along a number of different dimensions. So probably one aspect is you want to get more qualified applications. You want to reduce the amount of time that you spend per application. So think about Anna and the team. So that takes quite a bit of time for everyone to go through all the excellent applications and review them very carefully, but also sorting out the ones that are not part of your cohort right now. And that takes time, right? And these are potential losses in terms of efficiency if we have many applications of individuals that may not be perfectly matching the kind of profile that you want to have in the EMBAX cohort. And obviously, if you also have more applications, you have a better fit to the program, just by the number of people applying to the program and then the number of people that you're accepting to the program, there's also increase in turnover, obviously. So we need to think about how we measure the specific, and let me be clear right now, the specific variables, not just outcomes, but how do we boil down the specific outcomes that we want to track? You could call these KPIs or variables. The terminology depends a bit on whether you're thinking more from the business perspective, then you might call this the KPIs that you're tracking. Or if you're thinking more like a data scientist or a statistician, you're thinking about the features or variables that you want to analyze. So the way to measure success, you need to define this, but it could be the number of applications that you see, the years of experience that you have in the next cohort, the job ranks of the people, the kind of salary that they have. So just the average, is the average increasing? So do you get more top ranked people with higher salaries? Thinking about diversity, you probably want to track, what is the share of non-Swiss or non-European students that are enrolled in the program? So the kind of data that you want to have probably varies along the two dimensions that we already talked about. So is it internal data? Is it external data? And is that data that you either have internally or externally, is it structured or unstructured? So unstructured data can be everything that you just store in a data table, essentially. So it could be this 2x2 that we're thinking about. So if you look at the x-axis, is it data that you can easily store in an Excel sheet? So that's structured data. It can be also sometimes unstructured data, because you might have emails, you might have PDF documents, you might have reviews, you have all the evaluation sheets that tell you something about the experience that people have in the program. So you might have things that you have readily available as profile information structured form, but you probably also have a number of unstructured data types. So the kind of evaluations that you have and things that you can't easily store simply in a SQL database or an Excel sheet. So that data might be either available internally. So the data sources, looking at the y-axis now. So the data sources might be available internally, or we somehow have to get access to external data that we want to either openly access or maybe even want to pay for it and acquire it. So what are these data types to put this into specific terms here? So there could be internal structured data in the form of all the profile information that we might have. So what is your current job position? What is the industry of the person? What is your current salary? Demographic information. So male, female, age, country of origin, you name it. So all the things that we probably already have readily available from the current cohort. What we probably also have internally available, focusing now on the unstructured internal data, is probably the evaluation sheets. So that we want to understand what were the courses that people were most satisfied with, what were the people that were overall either the most excited about the program, and maybe you also want to focus specifically on those because maybe there are some commonalities on those that had the least amount of joy across the program. So how do you deal with this? So do you want to even avoid targeting them moving forward? Because maybe you have a share of participants that really suffered in the program, either because of the background or where they want to go with their career. So we want to make sure that we build a program that is really catered to the people that enjoy it the most and give the biggest boost in terms of the career outlook that they might have. So, and maybe you take into account the current evaluations across the entire program, but also the specific courses that you have. And maybe you have also tracked the emails that were all popping in with Stefano, Caroline, Anna, and everyone else in the team. But there might be also additional external data sources. So it could be that there were in the past a number of advertising campaigns that were run on LinkedIn. So you have the data from the targeting tool. You might have additional executive education industry reports that you could start to create somewhat of a benchmark. So how do we compare in terms of job bands? How do we compare in terms of share of specific industries? How do we compare in terms of average salary or median salary in our program compared to other programs? So that might be already available in terms of structured information that's externally available, but it could also be helpful to go one step further, external unstructured data. You might even want to scrape available comments on other websites, like aggregators such as Poets and Quants, where you have reviews of a large variety of programs. You might even want to track specific competitor websites and want to understand essentially like a monitoring tool where you could track over time how does the cohort change if they would report this openly on their websites. So you might even want to track what other universities are or your key competitors. So you need to be specific and think about who are our most important competitors, what are they publishing, and how could we use this for competitive advantage that we know where they're moving with the program. Do they have updated courses, for instance? So this is along these two dimensions. So do we have internal versus external data? So it's the type of data sources we're dealing with. And do we have data types that are either easy to analyze for us in structured form, or do we have some complexity in terms of unstructured data that is available to us? So then what you want to do in the end is you want to map this out. And this is now essentially the bird's eye view on the key aspects of the analytics project. So first, you want to define what exactly is our business problem. So we want to increase the number of applications. Want to have more diversity. We want to kick this off with some descriptive analytics. So we want to understand what is the current cohort? How does it compare to existing other programs like the EMBAX program or other more specialized programs? So you want to do first some descriptive analytics to understand what is the current situation before you want to go one step further and get into the prediction or predictive analytics domain. The data sources is what we just talked about before. You probably want to analyze a lot of profile data. You probably also want to analyze a lot of, I put this in quotes here, experience data. So what kind of feedback have you received from all of you in the current program? And how do we want to use that information to better target maybe the next cohort and the next students of the EMBAX program? In terms of models and algorithms, in the initial case, probably simple is probably just starting off with descriptive analytics. So just descriptive statistics. So you want to look at frequencies. You want to look at averages and medians. So just to understand what are the current distributions of some of the key variables that you have on the set. You also want to do some initial exploratory data analysis. And that could be some initial clustering for instance. So if you are a marketer, you want to segment the market. So you want to see people from a certain industry background rank in the current job are the most satisfied, see the most value out of the current program. And that's probably the people you want to focus on and leverage more. And that could be some initial analysis that you do on the clustering or segmentation side. Because we don't have a specific prediction model where we have accuracy score or amount of explained variation or whatever the evaluation metric is, here in descriptive analytics, we don't have these evaluation metrics. We don't have specific metrics of the model performance that we want to track. So this is the part that is relevant in the next section when we talk about building prediction models and classifiers and so on. So focusing on the risk assessment, while the associated costs are probably relatively small. So you probably want to hire maybe data scientist or analyst. We talk more about the key distinctions in the next few sessions, but it's probably in the lower 5-digit range that you want to have someone that is helping to kick this off for a few months. So, I mean, ideally, just to be completely transparent here, ideally, you want to have this not as a one show on off type of project. Ideally, you invest into it and you have a person that is helping you to constantly reevaluate. Is the kind of data that we have good enough? Do we need to improve some of the modeling that we're doing with the existing data? Are we missing some basic profile information? So ideally, it's not just this one-off project. Ideally, you think about this more long-term, but you could think about this also as a kickoff initially. That is for the next 3 months, and maybe this is in the lower 5-digit range in terms of expected costs. In terms of benefits, well, that's up to you to define what exactly might be the benefits. But here in this case might be you have more students, you have therefore more turnover. You probably have, if you can better target them later, you have less search costs. If you make sure that you have a more diverse group of people, you probably also get a better global reach and you get more perspectives in the discussions in class. And because of that increased internationalization, you will probably also then boost the rankings of the program. In terms of stakeholders, you need to think about the number of people that are probably involved in the project. It's probably the people that are heading the program. It's also the managers of the program. It's the IT support stuff that you might have. So someone has probably done the LinkedIn advertising. Maybe that person is not the same person that is doing the Google Analytics implementation and the tracking. Maybe that's even an agency. You also probably want to involve maybe the person heading the entire executive school, because maybe that is something that might be valuable for them moving forward. And in the end, maybe even the rectorate is relevant when you do these analyses carefully, because they probably also care about better understanding the current student cohorts and better target them in the future. And it's typically not as professional in an education context. At least, I mean, it's run extremely professionally, just don't get me wrong, but it's often not exactly the same type of level as compared to the big tech companies you could think about. And it's often, as a university, you often think more about the content that you're producing and what you want to provide as valuable content to the people participating in your different programs, as opposed to the tech companies that see this as a fully fleshed out supply chain, from the product development side to the tracking to thinking about the kind of content and products that you want to provide moving forward. So think about the Netflix cases and others that we talked about in class. So this might be a selected set of stakeholders, but we need to think about all the different key stakeholders that might be involved and relevant in that project. So this is a short walkthrough. I hope that this is helpful for you. I felt that this could be helpful if you want to apply this to your own settings now, that we have a short walkthrough of how you want to think about the key steps in the analytics projects. See you in class and talk soon.